Thank you very much, Mayor Veltroni, Mayor Ciamparino, our host here today. I wish to thank Mayor Veltroni for his hospitality and his kind invitation to join you at this historic event. And I wish to thank him for a most remarkable speech in defense of democracy, not only in Italy, but around the world. Let's say our congratulations to him. Ministers and former ministers, members of parliament, distinguished citizens and democratic citizens of Italy. We are here to revitalize and restore democracy, not only in Italy, but in the United States and throughout the democratic world. We cannot do that without understanding the age in which we live. And we live in the early 21st century in a dramatically revolutionary age. And I wish to take a moment for us all to understand what those revolutions are, because they are the realities with which we have to deal in the restoration of democracy. First of all, obviously, globalization. The internationalization of finance, commerce, and markets. Globalization is taking jobs away from some parts of the world and delivering jobs in other parts of the world. We are meeting here in one of the world's great symbols of industrialization. This symbol, this meeting hall, this building, symbolizes what has been great about the industrial age in this country and in my own. But this factory, this plant, is no longer doing what it used to do. Italy has lost industrial jobs. It is gaining, as my country is, new jobs in the information age. And it is the information age that represents the second revolution. Before the information age, people communicated with each other primarily through their governments and through their diplomatic and political avenues. Today it is possible for people in this room, for young people across this country, to communicate directly with young people in the United States and China, in almost every part of the world. That is a fundamental economic revolution. It is a profound political revolution, and it is an even more profound social revolution. Those two revolutions together, globalization and its economic impact, information and its political and social impact, are creating the third revolution, which is the erosion of the sovereignty of the nation state. Not only the historic nation state of Italy, but also the United States, virtually every country in the world. Authoritarian countries such as China are understanding the implications of globalization and information on their system. And that revolution is leading to the fourth revolution, which is the transformation of warfare. We will no longer fight, I think, with the mass production of weapons of mass destruction, traditional nation-state wars such as characterized the 20th century, but we are seeing a dramatic increase in unconventional, irregular warfare, and my country is engaged in two of those wars presently, as the previous speaker said, with the help of some of our allies and the loss of human life that occurs. This is the fourth revolution, and it is a serious and dangerous one. So it is within the context of those four revolutions: globalization, information, the erosion of the sovereignty of the nation state, and the changing nature of warfare, that we are here to discuss the future of democracy. And that future is going to be much different from what it has been in the past. I think we are at the crossroads, and it is timely for a conference such as this to be discussing this issue, because we can go one of two ways. we can go toward disintegration, in which tribes, clans, gangs, mafias begin to assert their authority and control. And as the nation state disintegrates, authoritarian figures arise because people become fearful for their own security. And so dictators and authoritarian figures arise because they promise people security. They promise people they can go back to the past. But that is a false promise. That is one course toward which the country can, toward which the world can go. And that is a process of disintegration. The other course, and the one you here in this country and in my country must seriously consider, is what I would call the creation of a global commons. When you think about the challenges of the 21st century, what you must realize is that virtually none of them can be solved by military means, and none of them can be solved by one nation alone. We have the threat of pandemics. We have the proliferation of weapons of mass destruction. We have the threat of climate change. We have disintegrating and failing states, and a host of other new realities that cannot be solved by military means, and my country cannot solve them by itself. That leads me to conclude we must think, and leaders such as Mayor Veltroni and many of you in this room must think, about a coalition of democracies forming, sharing power and sharing authority to form a global commons that helps prevent climate change, that controls weapons of mass destruction, that deals with massive south-north migrations, whether from Africa or Latin America moving north, and that host of other new realities that I mentioned. If we form that global challenge, that global commons, and meet that challenge, it will mean a transformation, not only of democracy in Italy or democracy in the United States, but democracy worldwide. The democratic nations of the world combining their resources, networking their governments and their public health services and their information systems and their security forces can provide an umbrella of security for the people of this country under which we can make the kind of economic transformation that is necessary to create the jobs for today's workers and for the young people of tomorrow. I think that challenge of creating that global commons is one of the great challenges in the history of mankind. We cannot protect democratic rights without also understanding that the principles that underwrite those rights and those freedoms come from the ancient republics of Athens and Rome. And if you look at the history of republics, your country and my country call themselves republics, but most Americans don't know what a republic means. A republic emphasizes duties. A democracy emphasizes rights. My belief here today is that to protect the democratic freedoms and democratic liberties that we have all fought for, we must emphasize the qualities of the democracy. First and foremost, the principles of the republic are founded on popular sovereignty. Power belongs to the people. It does not belong to a king or a prince or a president or a prime minister. It belongs to us. It is when we do not participate and do not exercise the power of the republic, the popular sovereignty of the republic, that authoritarian and dictatorial figures move into that vacuum. The second principle of the republic is a sense of the commonwealth. We are not in this simply on our own. We are all in this together. We are all in this either as Italians or as Americans or as citizens of the world. So we must begin to think, as I said about the global commons, of all of the things that we hold in common: our climate, our air, our water, our land, the necessity of eliminating weapons of mass destruction, the necessity of expanding democracy so that people such as in Tunisia and elsewhere have the chance to live in the kind of societies in which we live. But the third and perhaps most important principle historically of the Republic is resistance to corruption. If you read the ancient Greeks and the ancient Romans and the founders of America, what they were concerned about most that would undermine and destroy the Republic and therefore deny the democratic freedoms that Republic represents and protects was the corruption of the system. They didn't necessarily mean bribery under the table. They meant putting personal gain and personal fortune ahead of the common interest, putting one's own personal interest ahead of the good of the society. That was the kind of corruption they meant to resist, and we must fight it in the United States, and you must fight it here in Italy as well. The final quality of the Republic necessary to guarantee democracy is a sense of citizen duty, a sense of citizen participation. My country, which seeks to export democracy around the world, still has national elections in which no more than half of the eligible voters vote. The message we must send to young people is that this system they will one day own, they will one day be responsible for. If it declines, if it disintegrates, and with it disintegrate the freedom and the liberties of democracy, it will be because they do not participate. So I encourage you to continue the message that Mayor Veltroni and other speakers have delivered here today. Send that message to the young people of Italy. Tell them that they have a stake in what kind of country they inherit. The simple, obvious stake of what kind of taxes they will pay, whether they will serve in the military, what kind of air they will breathe, what kind of climate they will know. I came from a ceremony in Washington 2 days ago that celebrated the inaugural of John Kennedy. And in that speech, 50 years ago, President Kennedy said, "Human rights and democratic rights do not come from the state or from a government. They come from the hand of God. And God's work here on earth is truly our own." So today, I say thank you to you. Viva l'Italia, viva the United States, and viva democracy.